It's not easy finding affordable apartments in the Boston area, and tonight we're taking a closer look at the fight over brokers' fees.
Research through the Attorney General's consumer complaint database and found brokers' fees are a real concern for a lot of people. They can equal a full month's rent and make up the upfront cost of renting nearly impossible for people.
Boston 25 News reporter Drew Caritas looks at the push to examine the fairness of these fees and what you can do to try to avoid them.
I didn't really know broker's fee existed until I toured it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the one.
Olivia Ford says her dream of moving to Boston to launch her career was more expensive than she'd ever imagined. Splitting that North End apartment with a roommate would still cost her $6,000. $1,500 for first and last month's rent, a security deposit, and a broker's fee.
I think for it to be the entire month of rent, that's obscene to me.
The Florida native had no experience with broker fees, which are standard practice in Massachusetts and New York.
Like, all they really do is show up, give you a tour around the apartment, and they're like, okay, where's my money?
The Greater Boston Real Estate Board says the fees are justified, pointing out that brokers are licensed and regulated by the state and provide a service to both the renter and the landlord, like advertising and credit checks.
Showing a lot of different properties, gathering keys, qualifying the customer. They spend a lot of time to make that commission, although it may not appear that way.
But Danielle Johnson with Boston's Office of Housing Stability tells me they get a lot of complaints from renters asking why they have to pay.
Our office takes in around 400 calls a day. I would say about half those calls are related to fees that landlords are charging them. Johnson says the price of admission to rent in the city has become a barrier for many. The average rent for a one-bedroom in Boston is nearly $2,800, which could balloon to more than $11,000 up front with a full month's broker's fee.
What's one of the #1 scenarios you see where people are being asked to pay a broker's fee and they shouldn't be?
When a tenant has found the unit themselves and there has been no help from the broker.
Johnson advises tenants to keep a log of all the work they've done to find an apartment, but says a lot of the times landlords have fees baked into their lease. She says low vacancy rates and the lack of state regulation often benefit landlords, so they're able to pass on that broker cost to tenants.
Are you hopeful we'll see a change in this being standard practice here in the state?
I am hopeful. I think a lot of conversation has been had amongst elected officials to have conversations with both sides.
Previous legislation to limit broker fees here in Massachusetts has fizzled over the years here on Beacon Hill. A new bill introduced this year would empower cities and towns to regulate broker fees if they choose to, and it's already facing strong opposition from the real estate lobby. Suffolk University professor James Matthews manages a clinic where law students work with low-income renters to find alternative affordable housing. He's pushing for state laws to limit broker fees under certain conditions.
Landlords passing the broker fees onto the tenants certainly has a huge impact on renters. I think as a result, they may end up in poor neighborhoods or poor quality housing.
We asked housing experts what people can do to avoid broker fees. First, considering a large apartment community where you deal directly with a leasing office. Next, try to negotiate. Ask the landlord to pay all or part of the fee. And if you can, be patient. The closer the move-in date, the more anxious the landlord may be to fill that vacancy. Advice Ford wishes she had considered before taking out a loan to afford relocating to Boston.
Sometimes I'm like, it's kind of silly I wanted to be here because it's so expensive, but it's so beautiful.
In Boston, Drew Caritas for your local station, Boston 25 News.